Hello and welcome to Hobby Hammer, issue 24.
Yeah, wow. There's no kind of run up. There's no 5, 4.
We never do that. We never do that.
Wow, just dive straight into it. Okay,
Yeah,
yeah, issue 24. We're here.
yeah. So, joined today by Miles, as ever. I
Mhm.
am co-host Max, and today we're going to be talking Necromunda Secundus because the set is just released. So, what I was
Mhm.
alluding to, and what I redacted in the last episode, like put a censored thing over the model.
Yeah.
What I redacted last episode, we can talk about properly today. But first, we've got some big heresy news, right? Right?
Yes, we do.
Which is sort of crazy. Sort of crazy. Now, this was leaked we've missed this by a week because we didn't record last
We
week,
missed a week.
essentially. Yeah.
Yeah, last week we were doing a face painting course, and we were chatting, having a beer, saying, "Should we record?" And we came to the conclusion, like, not every conversation we have needs to be monetized. There's especially a problem. I mean, with me, with us, that because we are content creators, because we are artists, because we produce videos, that every single thing you do, every single conversation that you have must be recorded, documented, and then monetized. We decided, no, we're just going to take the night off.
It is true because obviously, like, we both independently do like hobby
Stuff.
videos. So then it's just like, oh, when we just bullshitting about hobby, it's just like, oh, let's just record it. But
Mm.
I think this is something that is a massive surprise. Like when it
Yeah,
got put in the Discord, I was like, oh my god. So what it
I thought it
is
was fake. I thought it was fake.
it's a very good fake though. So these
Yeah.
two things is Era of Ruin, the anthology, which is surely
Mm.
leading on into the Scouring. Now
Mhm.
I've got the contents page as well. The thing that sort of convinced me of it not being a fake, right? They've got a short story by Nick Kime, and I do not think if you were making a fake, you'd put Nick Kime in a list.
Yeah, okay, fair point. You
Because
convinced me.
unless it was sort of like double cross of there's no way that someone would be on the mega hype train
Yeah.
for that. So then if we put it in, it will look real. That's unless they're doing like a mental crisscross. That's what
So
convinces me though.
this past year hasn't been a great output for Black Library, and we haven't seen much in the way of, I guess, like the major authors: Chris Wright, Abnett, McNeil,
Mm.
ADB. And you're wondering what exactly they do, and they must be squirreled away on some kind of project. Could it be the new Amazon show? Could it be new animations? Could it be movies? Or could it be a launching of a new Heresy-esque series like The Scouring?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it'd be a really good place to go as well. So
Yeah, me too.
one of my problems with the heresy is almost the forced laboured nature to get to this singular point when the stories
Mm.
are all narrowing and converging, and that
Yeah.
massively takes away what the writers can do, and actually, to me, how interesting the stories have then become at the end.
Mm.
Whereas when we're starting at this narrow point and then branching off, the amount of freedom that can be had going into this like sandbox world, it's a whole new world of possibilities.
There are a few linchpins that you need to hit, like the Iron Cage, the
Yeah,
Reformation of the Legions, Gilliman being killed by Fulgrim. But yeah, I agree. Largely, it's unexplored territory. It's the white between the pages.
do you think they actually need to cover those incidents though? Because if they just like had war bands rather than they covered the war bands or whatever as they
Mm.
fracture away from terror
Mhm.
and covered the loyalist in those, I think actually if they, and this ties into what we're going to talk about later in Necromunda Secundus, I really like snippet stories. So
Mhm.
that could be that like short story books, single novels, one or two novels in a series, just one or two.
Mm.
And they could have it in the very like how in 40k they do those like here's a one-off story. Here's a one-off story.
Mhm.
Even the Night Lords trilogy is just a trilogy. And I think it's a good opportunity to do that rather than having how many books was the Heresy? Like 70?
Yeah.
Yeah, rather than having 70 books that you've got to have all the context of all of them, it could be like 2 scouring
Um,
books at the start and
I
then
guess
read any of the rest.
if we look back in another 10 years' time and they haven't covered those, I think I would be disappointed because they are seminal stories in 40k lore. But on the flip side, I wouldn't want the artist to feel obligated if they weren't feeling the story or if their creative energies lead them elsewhere. I think it has to be creativity first, because a lot of the books we got in the Heresy do feel like, okay, we need to cover this. Who's available? Rather than an artist being inspired with the drive to tell a story. So I think it has to be the emphasis on that first, story first. But yeah, I would selfishly like to see those books.
Well, maybe even it wouldn't have to be linearly told.
No, yeah.
Rather than having
I'm
this
so down
progressive
for that.
narrative.
Yeah, exactly. Like a sprawl of history. Maybe you could set it up. These are uh, uh, put a bit like the black books. How these are the collated notes of what we can find of the heresy. These are what documents that we were able to excavate from the ruins of history. And yeah, doesn't have to be linear. Doesn't have to be linear at all. I'm not married to that linear aspect of storytelling in this kind of series. 100%. No, just if the story is there to be told, tell it.
Oh, do you know what? This just kicked off in my head as well. With you saying like, oh, fragments of story, it could even be written like how the black books are written by like a techno scribe that is researching. It could be like fragments of the scouring from the. I think this is so not gonna happen. Fragments of the scouring from like an archaeotechnologist team. The different writers, obviously with their different ways of telling stories, would just be different scribes on that team, and then
And
they're piecing together the scouring.
and you can get around the idea of everything needs to be coherent because these are fragments. You'll have contradictory information out there. So if, like in one book, a Space Marine's wearing Mark IV armor, and maybe the writer didn't have that in their mind, or there's just so much research. I mean, a bit like Star Wars, that universe is so choked with overlapping lore that it's no wonder that people trip up every now and again. So if they are wearing the wrong marks of armor, yeah, okay, you have that, I guess, like get out clause of an unreliable narrator.
Yeah.
But hell, I mean, it's not down to us to figure this stuff out, right? I want to see the series, and like, I'd love to see the series. I'd love to see it done with the same kind of like seriousness in which that the Horus Heresy was told. And on the gaming slash modeling side of things, the Horus Heresy spanned roughly 10 years. It's a very short period of time. A lot of stuff happened, but then we have all these armies, all these miniatures, Primarchs, unfortunately not Sanguinius, but Primarchs, some Primarchs out there in the universe. What do you do with this model range? What do you do with the armies people have built up? Well, it's very easy to then shunt that into pseudo 40k. You can shunt it into the scouring era, and it frees you up a little bit to introduce things like Death Company or later developments that we see in 40k. It opens up the universe. It expands the scope of what we can do with our collections.
Yeah, 100%. Like you get the more mental 40k, or there'd be a bridge between. I know the Siege is almost this anyway.
Yeah,
but there's that bridge of them delving into madness even more so than the Heresy, because they, like in the Black Legion books, where they're making pacts just to survive, rather than making limited pacts to just about get over the line at terror. Yeah. Amazing.
I mean, it's such a rich period of history. You have the Reformation of the Legions. You've got, I mean, we talk about the imperial cult being this unified thing, but I'm sure there must have been wars of faith as certain interpretations gain momentum within the Imperium, fighting against each other. Would the Astartes have anything? The rise of the Inquisition and how they are starting. How would the Inquisition subsume agencies within the Imperium, like the Adeptus Mechanicus? There's a lot of politicking, there's a lot of rich history, there's a lot of conflict, ripe, just perfectly ripe for storytelling. But what I'm not happy about, and what I will not be doing, is buying any more of those goddamn limited edition books. I think that's what the umbrage was to the community, right?
Yeah.
Like, God, we're getting like Vietnam style flashbacks to buying those books. Like, God, not again, not again.
No, I didn't buy the Siege books, did I? Like, I've just been going with the audio books. It will be nice in the future for you to have that collection, Miles. It will be nice in the future on your nice bookshelf that people can see if they come to your courses. But yeah, don't bother with the.
I feel like I'm rewarding bad practices. That they're so lackadaisical. Like, oh, we'll put the books out. Oh, people are getting screwed over. We've made our money. I don't care. Like, let the scalpers have them. Fine. I'll get the books. I'll read them. But unless they change how we've talked about this many times. Like the simple solution: 2-week window. Anybody could buy one. I don't care about the little scribble in the book. I don't care if it's signed or not. I do not care. Give me access to it. If they do it in a 2-week window, fine. If not, to hell with them.
Yes. That way. No, I agree with you. I fully agree with you. Do it because no one cares how long they wait, and it just allows people access.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I don't care if I have to wait a year to as long as I know I have access to them and they can look pretty on my bookshelf. If there's a case of like entering this scrum on a website that just can't support it, that's being hacked left, right, and center by goddamn scam. Secundus?
No. First.
No, what's up next?
You have sent me across a video to annoy me. And because basically the background of this is Miles knows that I hate him sending me videos because actually this one's not too bad. It's framed well, just good. Like naturally. But it's the Kotias model that you've done. See, I said it right.
This started as a joke. We were chatting about this in the last Hobby Hammer issue. And I said, oh, I got the miniature. And then I started revolving, like, oh my God, this is such a gorgeous miniature. You know, I'm going to paint it as a joke. I'm going to put it up on social media, like, oh, thank you so much, Games Workshop, for sending me this miniature early. I don't know what everyone's complaining about. This is a great miniature. Weird, it's in metal, though. And I said, okay, I want a nice base for it because it's not an army piece. I'm not building it for a collection. I'm going to find a nice plinth. Like, oh, what am I going to put on the plinth? I have this really nice Unreal Wargaming base. So I can cut the bottom of the base off, put it on, no problem. And I start building up a putty. I thought, oh, I know. I could put a background to it. I could paint every stage of this. It's like these little footfalls that lead down to the path of hell. That a small joke meme project has turned into like a major project for me now. So I'm hoping to get it done by the end of the month. But yes, this is what is on my workbench personally for myself at the moment.
Well,
a joke that's gone out of hand.
Gone well out of hand. You're going to spend far too long on this. How much time are you going to spend on your Chaos Warriors, Miles? 0?
I'm trying to think of something funny and entertaining to say that. Yes. Secundus has so we got this hobby challenge this weekend. That's kind of like superseded that. The joke model is got there. Do you know what's really put a like roadblock in that project? It's the Chaos Knights.
Really?
I was really looking forward to doing those Chaos Knights, but putting them together and seeing the amount of detail that's on them.
On each one,
I'm looking at it and think, God, this is going to take me forever to do. And I can't, God, this sounds so weak. I haven't got the emotional wherewithal, the emotional ballast or grit to paint the Chaos Knights right now.
So is it the Chaos Knights or the Vanguard Knights that you've got?
I got the Chaos Knights.
Right.
Yeah. Even though they aren't as clustered as detailed as the Vanguard, they're still, I need to work the bases for them. I need to work up a color scheme. It's just, even looking at them is a little bit draining. And it shouldn't be draining. It should be joyous. But I'm putting together marauders in the background because I'm hitting that point in the project where I just need to put a lot of work and a lot of time into it, and it's already August, and in my periphery I can see Christmas, and I need to start building material for Christmas.
Chaos Knights rather than Vanguard Knights. I actually feel your pain on that one because I've had 20 Chaos Knights sat on the plastic, actually right there, for about 8 months now. Like since 2 months before the Old World came out, I've had Chaos Knights to expand my Step Tribe Chaos Army. And I've been looking at them because I wanted to convert them into like two-handed lancers.
That'd be
Mongolian
cool.
heavy
That's
lancers.
a lot of work, though. That's a lot of work.
So
because the kit, the kit isn't sort of like multi-pose like the older kits. It's snap fit. So having to do something like that, you just have to do so much legwork to get them up and running.
Well, so what I was thinking is, if you've got the shield by one side and the lance by the other, if I just instead of the shield, like Dremel out underneath I imagine they've got the fur on, and just have like a two-handed mace hand that can be like an overhanded spear jab, or maybe underhanded. But either way, yeah. So they've been sat there. So I feel your pain on the stall, and also my Bretonian.
How about your Bretts?
So
how are your Bretts coming along?
Well, I've been looking at them. I've got the Reconquer Designs Villain Knights, which I've printed out 14.
Dude, I've been looking at those.
Yeah.
With a wandering eye, thinking, I could start a Bretonian army.
The Villain Knights are really good, man. They're really dynamic, and I'm going to use them as mounted yeomen for my Exiles army.
Nice.
Because I'm going with that sort of like very early medieval, late Saxon theme, like sort of like 1066 era. And I say that some more historical, knowledgeable people than me will be like, they're not the right era.
They wouldn't have
just
those
in general. It's just in general, right? But so I'm using them as their base coats back there. But I was actually thinking, it was yesterday, the day before, I was like, I should paint them. But what has been staring me in the face, and because of the new Mechanicum release, I sort of want to do a bit of Mechanicum stuff. So I've pulled this out, and these.
Oh.
And I've already built it. I built the Warhound like 2 years ago. And I was like, should I just paint it? So I've got Saturday, Sunday where I've got hobby time. I might just paint it all in 2 days.
Do it.
Yeah.
So from the Dreadnought course, we were chatting about like future courses, and the idea was floated for doing a Titan course. But painting a Titan in 2 days might be a bit stretched too far. But it's called a challenge for a reason.
Yeah. Well, I can let you know how I get on as well.
Bash out in 2 days. You can teach the course.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what. After last week, when you saw me painting all the metals on some Mechanicum with an airbrush, and you were like, "What the hell are you doing?" Maybe I shouldn't be the one teaching the course.
Yeah. But I hate to admit it, they actually look quite decent at the end. Like it all came together. And when you painted the armor panels, and then you were airbrushing metallics, and the metallic spray was like getting over the periphery. I was like, what the hell are you doing? No.
Yeah.
But when you put like the other process you put on top, it kind of replaced sponge chipping on the edges.
Yeah, exactly.
I was mad at you. It worked so well. I wanted them to look so bad I can really lay into you, but I can't.
Yeah, but you know what?
They look quite decent.
I know I was already using the green with them before you informed me of colour theory and the colour wheel. But if we put the colour wheel to the orange to orange red, which is I painted them in like a burnt orange, we get green. So I was using the right one, and it's all just down to that, right? He's having that extra spot colour next to the orange that I was using to make them look like sort of Greek pot amphoras.
Uh-huh.
But it hides multitudes of sins. I think that's my painting process. Is each step hides the last step's sins. And that's the entire thing. He's like, well, I'll do the armor and then I'll spray the silver because my entire thought process was, if I spray the silver, and I've got like a big project. I started doing it when I did the solar, and I did the solar in like, I think I averaged like a minute and a half a model. And it was like,
that's ridiculous. That's ridiculous.
So, do you know what? And I'm actually pretty happy with how the solar turned out. Like, as an army, they like, as a 240 model solar army, I'm happy with how they turned out. And so I was like, right, well, I've not got much time. I need them for next weekend for an event. Right. Airbrush the silvers, because then I don't even have to do the minuscule amount of time of like, right, my brush has run out, dip the brush back into the thing and then carry on dry brushing. So I was like, I'll do it with the thing. I'll do it with the airbrush. Oh, and yeah, man, just the overspray and then hiding the overspray with something else on the next step. It's all in the art of compromise.
I can't say I'll be doing any of that. So this weekend, the emphasis is very much on speed, but I can't say it'll be like under a minute and a half per mini.
The mech weren't a minute and a half. The mech were longer.
Sure. But I do a series called Art of Compromise via Patreon. And the aim is to try and get infantry done in under half an hour to a pretty decent standard. To get done under a minute per miniature.
A minute and a half. But like, that is on 240 models.
Sure.
So then
like
when you're doing that step and all it is like pick up model.
Yeah, and not taking into account like getting up, unfocusing your eyes, looking around, getting a coffee, shouting at a seagull, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. So it was big batches, and we're even at that compromise step, we're painting with two different intentions. Like mine is that solar army is something that even when I get compliments on it, it's the composition of the models that I've used, the fact that I've changed STLs around and like remixed STLs, and then just like how it has come together as a totality, rather than even with your compromise steps, they're still very high level miniatures. And it's the painting with intent.
Yeah, that's the aim.
I'll jump on what you said last weekend. We've got different intentions and intentionalities when we paint.
But I think that's important, like painting with intention. So when a few of my students, when they come on to do private lessons with me, it's that clarification aspect where they want to do non-metallic metal on like 500 Skaven that they have in their collection, and they want to get better with each one. No. Mass infantry is not the time. I mean, certainly it's your own hobby, it's your own time. If you want to use them as practice pieces, fine. If you want to get an army painted, you create a process, you repeat the process. When it comes to characters, you should have that luxury then to have all that ballast, all that knowledge and development, then put it onto the miniature. Conversely, if you're painting for competition, you need to almost treat each armor panel as an army or a character in and of itself. So a Space Marine shoulder pad isn't just something you put trim around in a decal. No. You need to develop the volumes of it. You need to understand the character, how it sits in. Painting with intention. It's very important to clarify your process right from the very outset, so you aren't adding bounce reflections on 500 Skaven clan rats.
Yes. Yeah, 100%. And I think sticking to it is an important bit as well. Like not getting distracted with, I could improve this in terms of speed paint, and then.
Yeah, we say this with all the confidence of a 5-year-old wearing a Batman top. You must do this. You must do that. But I'm looking at my Chaos Knights over there. I haven't got an ounce of discipline in my goddamn body. I mean, I've just bought these. Look.
Well, will you just do us a favour as well, Miles? Like, I think this will demonstrate it. Actually, is why we can say one thing and do another. Will you put your other camera on? Like, switch to your other camera?
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, switch to your other camera.
I know.
Okay,
I know
pick up the blue round thing on your desk. There we go. It's the Vortex Mixer. Miles has got a Vortex Mixer.
I didn't buy it. A student left it here. And I thought since it's here, I may as well plug it up. See what it's like.
So you were saying when he comes and picks it up this weekend, you won't be buying another one? We're not saying anything at all. Shall we move on to Secundus? Yeah. We've got the first thing, I think, is the strong art style of the book. And do you know what? I've started recording. And like this piece of artwork that's on the front cover.
Yeah.
Just really sets the tone for it. We've got like the reds that like the Cursed City artwork, this blue that just perfectly harmonizes with it. And almost like the negative, like the blackness creating the shapes as much as, and then the placement of lights rather than the actual colour of the subject in the art.
Yeah.
It's just so atmospheric.
I mean, in the design notes, they talked about how they wanted to give the impression that the entire hive is kind of like submersed in the deep ocean. And it does very much have this feel about you, these moody blues, turquoises shot through with these magentas and these stabbing lights from like the Van Star, what are they called? Tech hunters?
Yeah.
Tech hunters. I mean, right throughout this book, it carries through. They've even, on like the side panels, they've changed the coloration of it. Everything has this cool tinted blue look to it. And then when we look at examples of some of the artwork in there, of what we have up on screen.
We've got the biotech, but let's go to I think the strongest ones to me, fitting with the theme, are the Gene Stealers. I think they've done them really well.
Like these horrible anglerfish, like coming out of the darkness, out of the murk of the ocean, staring at you with alien eyes.
Yeah, and it gives that impression, I can't beat that description. Because this is obviously a game of one-upsmanship all the time. No, but they captured that perfectly without, and it's still recognisably a Gene Stealer. It's still a Gene Stealer, but has these other qualities that we don't normally
Gene Stealer
associate.
gone wrong.
Yeah, and this, like, I've just flicked to the Gene Stealer art that we've used a couple of times, like in the last video. That's the one that's literally like looks like it's beneath the sea with a tyramite in the background. Really, really strong art style, and I think it's a perfect setup for the box to set the mood of how you will actually be playing this.
I mean, when we flick through some of the lore as well, we chatted a little bit about this before the cast, and how so in previous editions they wouldn't go into this much detail. They'd have more snippets. And they rely on you to like fill in the gaps a lot more. Whereas this is a little bit more fleshed out, and you always feel that. I guess this is the setting for you. This is the framework to then tell your own stories in here, and it's a very evocative world, right? Where you have this hive that's been exposed, battered, shattered, and then quarantined.
That's why when you say like it's such an evocative world and like snippets, that's why I really like the timelines in there. So I have read a couple of chapters of the Secundus sets rulebook, but the main thing that I like doing is reading the timeline and actually just filling the blanks in my own head. Because then it perfectly sets the tone that I'm interested in, because it's my own head canon.
Exactly. I don't think you necessarily read this for the storyline. It doesn't like grip you or engage you as much as the art style and the overall mood it's setting up for you. It's very much like a mood piece for you. And they said over and over again, Necromunda is a toolbox. It is a RPG, more so in nature than like a game like 40K.
Yeah.
So the mood of this is very evocative. It sets the scene very well. It gives you the flavor, even if it doesn't like give you. I think the black books have spoiled us a little bit. When you look at those, you can read those for the narrative. It's engaging, but with these, you don't necessarily read them for the storyline or the engagement you get from them. It's more the overall tones that it's painting.
So he's the opposite of like the stereotype of hustler, that you don't read them for the articles, you read them for the
Yeah, you just look at the
snippets.
pictures.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
And
And
yeah,
I mean, speaking about the pictures
you go.
and the overall mood
And
of
we're
it,
doing this already. We're doing this already.
we're doing this already. So flicking through this, and overall, very decent book. Can't wait to try it. Can't wait to implement some of the art style. But there are a couple of bits and pieces in here that kind of like catch a snag. So if you could bring up on screen right now this image that sparked a little bit of a back and forth within the Discord.
Yeah. So this is the descent from Port Styx, and
yeah,
it's a very. Do you want to describe it? It's very concept.
It's very impression.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very. So this is I think we both had the same impression. We looked at this. That is that an unfinished piece of artwork that's in here? What is this? The shapes are very loose. It seems very slapdash in how it's applied. And then when you flick through the book, there are a couple of more images. So I don't mind this kind of image being in there once, but when this style of image keeps getting repeated again and again in a major publication like this, it can come off as a little bit lazy. That it maybe not lazy, not as refined as it should be.
Yeah. So I definitely had that impression the first time.
Yeah.
I went through the book and saw these images, and actually, weirdly, they've grown on me because I think of the atmospherics of the setting.
Yeah.
So there's even, as part of it though, as you're flicking through the book, there's this image that is not the same colour palette as the rest of the book. We've got the very strong blues across the rest. And then there's suddenly this dusty image.
Yeah, and it's this was the initial image that sparked the debate. And I think you mentioned that the color palette's different. I don't mind that, but my point, I guess I didn't like articulate well enough, or wasn't explicit when I put it up in there. I didn't have a problem with the color palette because it's outside the hive. Like all the moody blues and submersed images are inside the hive, and it has quite a claustrophobic environment because of that. Outside the hive, having these like rusty oranges and ochres, there's a very clear separation between in hive and outside of hive.
Yeah, and that's fair. Like the other image that we've got within this sort of like concepty style is in its blues. It's got like Vansar at the top of a cavern, at the top of a cliff, and it's almost like it's blocked in pastels that isn't then refined down with any form of detail. But then as I've actually carried on with the book, they sort of like allowing it to be in that sort of murky area that you can fill in the blanks yourself, what's actually going on in this picture, rather than it being super detailed. I actually then ended up quite liking for just like imposing what you think is going on onto that yourself, in the same way as I like the timelines for allowing me to fill in the blanks.
And when you are underneath the ocean, you can barely see in front of you. And I think these kind of images try to reflect that the sense of scale and sheer, just how massive these caverns are and how big these environments are. You can't really see them because it's so dark and murky. And it has this. But having said that, when we compare an image like this to some of the older artwork, I think the blue image that we've had up on screen, even though it feeds into the theme and the atmosphere, I could say if I'm somebody new to this hobby, I didn't have an appreciation of the story, whatever. I look at this image, go, oh, okay, I pass by, and I never think about it again. Whereas some of the older artwork,
so I'm on the
you see it,
auto pistols with the spire in the background image, even with cruisers.
Actually, when you look at this, so I mean, I can only, like, as a kid looking at this image, I spent hours crawling over every single little detail on here. It's crammed full of just the most bizarre imagery, very Blanche-esque. It's overwrought, overdone, maybe a little bit more cartoony in nature, but visually much more distinct. This is a Warhammer image. This is a definitive setting, and it is placed in a very definitive context. This is no other sci-fi world I can imagine or think of or put a reference to. I mean, maybe the closest you could come to is 2000 AD, like Judge Dredd.
Yeah.
But even then, it doesn't have like this baroque madness about it.
Yeah, and I think that's the same with all the other images that you've sort of sent over, because when we was preparing for this, Miles was like, name me images that are this good nowadays. And I was like, these crap images in the 3rd edition rulebook as well. So I actually went and, before recording, I was like, I'll prove Miles wrong. There's crap images in the past as well. So I got the 3rd edition rulebook out. There's not. They're all really good. I had to eat my words. And I even had written them in a public forum, so I had to literally eat my word. I couldn't just delete them and hope they went away, because it's on the internet, it's out there.
Yeah.
So,
but I mean, even if there's images in the 3rd edition book or 2nd edition book, whatever, that you don't like, they are still uniquely Warhammer. They have a feeling about them that you can attribute, that you can hook onto this world. Now, when I look at those 2 images in this book, in the new Necromunda book, of like the cliff face and the descending gantry pad, they could be from any sci-fi universe. It could be from Star Wars, Alien. There's nothing distinctly Warhammer about it.
Yeah, and it's just, while Miles is saying this, or while we're both saying this, we're not seeing all of the artworks like this. Overall, obviously, we both love the tone of this set. And actually, are you coming round on these artworks as well? Because I've sort of come round on them. It's just we thought it was worth bringing up in comparison point.
Yes. Now, this isn't typical of all the artwork. There are Warhammer pieces in there, very more, I guess, like draftsman-like pieces in here, variety of different art styles. Just these 2 images are highlighting a point that they aren't distinct. I guess I can appreciate them on an intellectual level.
Yeah. Okay, so go on.
I don't love it. I can't pick this up and show my wife, like, look at this mad bastard image here. Look at that. Look at this guy with, I mean, there's an image we sent through, like, there's a rat in the corner that has scales on the back and is eating the eye of a guy with like fish scales growing out. It's like, I can't show her that and go, look at this craziness. It's not like a visual overload.
No, but do you think actually those old images are of their time, and this new image, although it doesn't appeal to someone that is self-invested into that old world?
Yeah, I mean, we do talk about nostalgia a lot, colouring our love of some miniatures especially. Yeah, perhaps it is that. Perhaps it is of its time. Late 90s was a different animal to today. I mean, it would be interesting to get more like Gen X's
opinions on it.
Opinions on this, as if Gen X's watch this show. Yeah, I mean, put your opinions below. As a YouTuber, or like you put up stuff on YouTube, that you fall into certain tropes, like, comment to tell us what you think. Like, I genuinely want to take a snapshot or opinion from the community.
Yeah.
Because we did have a bit of a back and forth in the Discord. Strife Minis, thank you for putting up pictures, especially of like Lionel Johnson and some of the newer Games Workshop artwork, where it's concentrating more on atmosphere rather than maybe like this madcap ideas that were introduced in like the 80s and 90s. I know which image that I enjoy, like full-bloodedly, and I can frame on my wall, and which one I look at and go,
Yeah, and I will say I have forced Miles to bring this up on the cast, because Miles did not want to bring this up, because it sort of like shunts how at least we appear to be talking about the set in a direction that isn't representative of how we actually both feel about it. Like, even of the artwork, because we're talking about 2 specific artworks.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, I will say that I forced you to bring it up. on the cast.
Yeah. Overall, I mean, it doesn't spoil my enjoyment of the book. I don't look at that arc and think, "Oh, fuck this book," and just throw it on the ground, burn it. No. It was a interesting discussion point that came up in the Discord. I thought it might be worth comparing new artwork to old Necromunda artwork and seeing the change over time.
Based on the artworks that you do in fact like, shall we talk about your Gene Stealer gang? Because we'll go over the painting and modelling that has been done. So up on screen, we've got your initial Gene Stealer Magos.
Yes. So this entire gang is framed for years. I've been trying to. I love Necromunda gangs because you paint an army, you get a bit burnt out. You can paint 12 miniatures, and that's a collection in and of itself. And I wanted to do Gene Stealer cult for a while, and I hit upon the idea of, okay, what is it that's so unsettling about the Gene Stealer and the Gene Stealer cult? And for me, it's their reproductive process. And how this hear me out. Not because of hear me out. So Gene Stealer, the Xenos, comes to a woman, hypnotizes her and impregnates her. Problematic to say the least, but that's not the most disturbing part for me. It's I think it's especially crystallized as having my children myself and seeing how my wife interact with, especially like a newborn baby. Like that first few moments of life, just that ironclad love. There's no other force quite like it. But what if that love was like undercut by this Xenos creature? This Xenos creature knows that a mother's love for this creature is undivided, and it's almost like a cuckoo. You know how cuckoos they plant their nests and they are born first, and then they kick out the other birds. It's very much like that. So that's the most disturbing aspect for me, that a mother looks at this creature, and even if she's brainwashed, even if she's like hypnotized by this creature, there must be some note or element of truth that says this isn't mine, this is wrong. But her overwhelming love for this creature overrides that. And that is the most disturbing aspect of Gene Stealer cults and their reproductive process for me. The sublimation of the mother-child dynamic.
Right, okay.
But I also thought, why haven't Gene Stealer cults taken over Necromunda? And this is before the explanation of the mal strains and how they cut. And I thought, okay, and there must be something about Necromunda's atmosphere. It's so poisonous that cults can't reproduce. There's something about the atmosphere and the world that just pollutes the process. So these mothers will keep producing generations of monsters. Of misaligned biblos, like messed up creatures. So that was something I wanted to represent in the miniatures. I wanted the minis to be malformed and warped and out of proportion.
Yeah, like I've just flicked through the double-headed one, and the brutes with like the auto gun, big claw, like the abhorrents, I think they called.
Yes.
And they're missing. Is that purposefully missing a toe?
No, I cut it off by mistake.
I think you should have gone with yes. You should have gone with yes. It fits.
Yes.
So, I think you captured it really well, especially and with the spindly hair that you've added to the model.
That's. And I wanted to introduce sort of like a two-cast system as well. So you'll see on some of the models, I've used the Kroot kit from AOS because they have these wonderful warped proportions. And they are wearing noticeably less clothes. Right. I thought the further away from humanity you get, the less you need to, like, they don't feel the cold as keenly. They don't need to be fed as much. Like, all the trappings of humanity are just simply fading away. And this is represented through their clothing. The less clothes they have, the further away from humanity they get. As opposed to the more survivalist aspects of some of the troops I have there, some of the cultists I have there, where it looks like they loaded up with all their gear. And I thought in Heresy Secundus, it's not like you can nip down to the local Tesco to buy something. These guys have to wear their pack everywhere they go. And I wanted to get across that survivalist aspect to them. so that was some of the, and another, I guess, overlay on top of that was the idea of what happens to a culture after an apocalypse occurs. What happens to you, and how do you build from that? What do you do after the end of the world?
Yeah.
So I did want to introduce some religious imagery in here. So Cawdor-esque hoods, weaponry, purity seals. So they've taken the trappings of the imperial cult, which they do not understand. And I think, okay, this must be sanctified. This will keep me safe.
Yeah.
Because I've survived so long holding this like little chicken bone. Okay, it must be holy in some way. So what we have here is a misunderstanding of religiosity within the hive that's been destroyed and perverted with gene stealer / tyrannid iconography as well.
Yeah, I think it comes across really well. Like, could you tell anyone listening what kits you have used?
Yeah,
so we've got the gene stealer. And this can just almost be quickfire as well. So we've got the gene stealer Magos.
It's a combination of the gene stealer cult plastics.
Yeah.
I had it over from, I think it's Death Watch. Do you remember that game?
Yeah.
I still have that box. I've been waiting for something to do with it. So it's a combination of that. Kroot miniature. No, not Kroot miniatures. Sorry, Orc miniatures from AOS.
Oh, the Hobgrots.
Yes.
Those
Yeah, cut up. I've also used some Cawdor guns and weapons with it. The big fat guy with the two heads with the auto gun is taken from the Blood Bowl set, the Nurgle set.
Right, okay.
And the Magos, the gang is structured around Mother Maiden Crone as well, so the Crone of the set. She is the water emissary from the Necromunda water emissary set. She's one of them.
Right. Yeah. And where's the staff from?
That's from Lady Oleander from AOS.
Right. Okay.
It's the floating like apparition. It was just a random piece of bit that I had from a previous commission.
You've got such a trove of, I'm going to say crap, but clearly it's worked well. Like it's not crap.
I never throw anything away for this reason. Yeah, and come December, students are going to be very happy for it, because coming in September, we're running a character conversion course. People come to the studio. It's a bit like a D&D session. You come to the studio, you go through all my bits box, we create a character together, and then we spend the entire weekend. I'll teach you how to sculpt. I'll teach you how to reframe it. I'll teach you all the tricks that you need to learn how to produce excellent characters, like the ones you see on screen.
And people get to raid your bits box, essentially.
People get to raid my bits box, yes.
And there is a Warlord Titan in the bits box, which may not be appropriate for a model, but certainly could be used on the base.
It's not in the bits box. It's on top of my fridge. It's on top of the fridge. It's not in the bits box.
Fine. Right, so let's go on to painting, because you're going to paint these this weekend.
Yes.
I've already painted the set, so let's go over how you are planning, and then let's go over.
So I want to apply an underpainting principle to it, because this game is so atmospheric. It has these really wonderful like teal. And again, as a refresher of what underpainting is, it's seeing the scene without the miniature on there. So you are painting all the ambient tones onto the miniature first before you start refining the details. So I'm thinking of having a little bit of like magenta in places just to add contrast, and then lots of moody blues and teals and turquoises, exactly like that image there. Yeah, that is the archetype of what I want to do. And then when it comes to the tech hunters and the spirers, you can cut it through with oranges.
Yeah.
Perfect. So I want to build this in the initial, and then I'm going to use the Nocturna set, the flesh set, to start building up, because there's a lot of flesh on these guys. And because this is a challenge to try and get them in a weekend, I dare say there's going to be a lot of oils, a lot of enamels, to give myself those like creepy, horrible, sickly flesh tones.
Yeah.
And I do want to experiment with the skin a little bit, giving it more of like a satin sheen.
So it
But
like looks alien and wet almost.
Exactly, yeah, almost like the skin is waxy. I'm putting like inlay it with veins before layering over other colors. So that's in a weekend, yes, as well as doing Van Saar, which is a little bit more straightforward, thankfully, and Spire Hunters. And I do, with the Spire Hunters, I do want to get across their sense of them belonging to a noble house within the House Helmau. So I want individual heraldry. I do want something a little bit more unique for them than I've seen so far. So that's the that's the intention. I mean, it's called a challenge for a reason. That's the overall intention behind the project. And I also want to talk a little bit about the basing as well. Sorry to hog this segment, but the basing. I was chatting with another student about Hive Secundus because you need it visually different from like the Hive proper.
Yeah.
And we started talking about like visual references, and Alien 3 popped up. And do you remember in that there's quite a lot of water like flooding through the surfaces? Like, yeah, the station, because it's being run by convicts, like all the staff have left. So it's kind of breaking down. They're doing their best to keep it functional, but ultimately it is breaking down. It's on the edge of collapse. And there's lots of running water and sluices. And I thought, okay, this would be a similar thing to Hive Secundus, where it's breaking down elements that are exposed to the sky. And as water comes down, where there is water, there is life. So I was thinking of introducing like vines and strange alien outgrowths and almost like not flowers, but like strange growths on the end of these vines. So I want to use the Necromunda base, but then overlay it with more natural elements, as if the elements such as it is are trying to reclaim the mechanisms of the spire.
Yeah, so that's actually a really good idea. Now, what I've actually done on my bases is just a continuation of what I was doing on the rest of the model, which we'll get into in a sec. But actually, I that sounds a good enough idea that I might go back and add some of those elements, even with like maybe some UV resin to make them look wet.
Oh, yeah.
And then have little bits of green for, say, like a very dark green, so it doesn't throw off the rest of what I've been doing. But maybe some dark green.
So looking at the front of this booklet, maybe like these light lime green might be quite nice to introduce.
And it's very washed
in isolated elements. Yeah, in very small isolated elements, I think something like that could work.
Yes. Right.
A little plug, if you want to see all this process, if you want to, it's all well and good talking about the ideas, but if you want to see the follow through of it, the video for this will be up on the Patreon come the end of the month. So yes, last and only plug. So
not last and only plug.
Pledge.
I'm about to plug, Miles. I'm about to plug.
Max is going to plug.
Horrendous plug. So, sorry, everyone. Right. So what I've been doing is, because I got on the content creator thing for this, which is why I couldn't talk about it last time. Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Bigwig. Well, we're honoured to have you here.
Horrendous. So I'm saying that so it's not like, Miles, like, why have you not already got yours painted when Max has? The reason I had extra time, right? So I have already got my set painted. Now, what I wanted to do with my set is really go for the aspect of the artwork about darkness, and I really wanted to play into the darkness in the set. So I went for like an extreme lighting where one side of the model would be near pitch black. So do you remember the Alien poster where it's like split down half of the head and you see the shapes on half and then the other half is just left completely black, but your brain fills in that gap?
Yeah.
So I sort of went for that with the models and actually had a really good time dry brushing, which is something that I actually said to you, I think last time or the time before, like I hadn't done in years and was terrible at it. Really terrible. And I was like, right, well, I'm going to have to just get over my fear of dry brushing because and who knew dry brushing is fairly good and fun to move away from the airbrush for a bit, man.
Yeah, and with dry brushing as well, you could do a thing called oh god, what's it called? It's like stifling. Yeah, something like that. Like I
God damn
don't
it,
know
Miles.
too much about this technique. I don't know too much about this. It's only for the super advanced. I think the creative program, you're only allowed to use it there.
Shut up, Miles. Shut up, Miles. So Miles is
Yeah,
now
give it a go.
in joking that after the last episode, I was like, have you seen the stippling that people have been doing? And before I could finish the thought, Miles jumps in and goes, yes, of course I have seen stippling.
Stippling! Well, I was born stippling, bro.
No, but I meant
I'm a
across
professional painter.
entire models and like painting an entire model just with stippling techniques to get depth. And that's what I meant. It wasn't saying that, hey, do you know stippling as a thing? But, and anyway,
I've
that's
heard
the
of stippling,
in-joke.
yes.
Yes. So yeah, I basically painted these with sort of an extreme lighting. The base, I did the same by just leaving a lot black and then painting the base. And basically all of it, I really enjoyed doing it, actually, in establishing the colours from one direction. Some of them have got oils to pin wash like the Van Sard, recreate those plates and redefine them and put lights on the Van Sar. Whereas the Gene Stealers and Gene Stealer cultists, I didn't use any OSL because they would be in darkness and only illuminated by the Van Sar, which I was quite happy with in the end. But if I were, and these videos of how I did this on the channel, it's quite an easy process, an enjoyable process to just get them to this point. Now, if I were to carry on from here, what would you? And this is because it's not a guest that you don't want to insult or by ripping apart their work.
Yeah, I don't mind insulting you at all.
Yeah, exactly. Like
I crack my knuckles. Yeah. So with this,
say the Gene Stealers, the Gene Stealer.
Yes. Let me bring them up. Gene Stealer. Okay. So I would go back and refine them with the airbrush. Unless this is something like you're dead set against, like I'm not using the airbrush on these projects, but I mean, it's a tool there to be exploited, so let's exploit it. I would reinforce the shadows. So like you can see, like you have this little blue that's a little bit too abrupt. So maybe I take a little bit of your like mid-tone, it looks a bit like dwarf flesh there. I dry brush it over the top to help bring it over and leave like the blue in the gaps. And then I'd use an airbrush to reintroduce and like add more of a gradient, because at this moment you want to work more in like universal tones rather than specifics.
Yeah.
So I'd start building up those universal tones in teal, blue, and then I'd add little hints of green here and there to help break it up, and then maybe introduce on the base. I've seen people paint like the little modules in like a color. So on the front Gene Stealer, for example, there's like this little nodule in front of his left hand.
Yes.
I'd look to make that like a light source. So I'd paint that magenta, like a very hot pink magenta, and then use the airbrush to reflect on the underside of the face.
Oh, that's a good idea. That gets the color of the set back into.
Yeah, and when we talk about, so with the example you gave of the Gene Stealer, like half the face being.
Let's carry on. There's a bus in the background. It is constant bus. Apparently, Swansea is the best place for public transport everywhere because we can't get rid of the buses.
20 to 11 in the morning, prime bus time. So we talked about half the Gene Stealer's face being illuminated, and the other half just disappearing into darkness.
Yeah.
Now, this is a problem that movie posters encounter. Well, this is the first time I became aware of it. Movie posters had this problem where they were advertising the latest Death Wish, and half the guy's face is illuminated, but then there's just so much black on the other side. Everything's lost. What people quickly figured out, and I'm sure you've seen this craze of like orange backlighting and teal. Yeah. This color comment used so much in advertisement. So you have like the teal on one side, and then the illumination from like the off-camera source on the other side. So you get the black in between. Your mind registers it as being in darkness and in the shadow, but you still have the illumination and the definition along the side of the face. So that's a little trick you can employ here. But ultimately, that's why I'd say across the entire gangs, it's a reinforcement of the shadows and then adding pinpricks of light sources to pick out details on your mini. But you're not far off at all. You're not far, considering what you spent like a minute each painting these miniatures.
The Gene Stealers were about 16 minutes each, because essentially, for anyone that doesn't want to be asked watching the video, I dry brushed the very top areas, and with from a 45-degree angle as well, so it only caught the ridges.
So
and
your
then
light source,
left me with a lot of black. Yeah, essentially, I'm going to very quickly describe it as a zenithal highlight, because and Miles knows that I hate the word zenithal because it means the top, not 45 degrees. But yeah, I did that with the dry brush, and then just brush washed / glazed over with burnt orange that I am apparently using on every project at the moment. It's because it was the right colour for the anglerfish, and it just happens to be the colour I painted my mech army a year ago.
I find that I fall in rhythms with my painting, so I'll go through a period where I'm at the moment, everything I'm painting has Evil Sun Scarlet in it.
Yeah, this is even just completely random. I was looking at those anglerfish images that we were talking about in the previous episode. Burnt orange is the closest colour that I could just grab to paint quickly and get onto there. So yeah, washed and glazed over with that. And yeah, the Mechanicum I painted a year ago in that same colour. And it just happens that 2 projects in a row have had this. So yeah, it was just a really enjoyable process to glaze over with that. But then if I do want to go back, it's useful to have those extra tips. And yeah, it took 15
reinforce with an
airbrush in a model.
Yeah, I mean, especially with the Van Saar, because you could pick out bits of the gun or the eye lenses in orange, and then that would be like a further accent color to everything else going on, and you'd pick them out from like the Gene Stealer cults.
Yeah, cool. Right, so is there anything more we want to go over on the Secundus set? Oh, the rules! The rules! You've got Scabies and I've got rules.
Sorry, I do want to end with this, so we'll come back to that. I do want to end with this.
Right, okay. So, rules-wise, I've actually just finished off the campaign with me and Phil finished it literally last night. The last 2 games are on the editing table. And then one got released, game 1 got released last weekend. 2 to 4 are currently on Patreon. So for anyone that wants that, Miles, be forced to drop in the description where those are. But yeah, as a campaign, I think it's really, really good. It's an arbitrator versus player campaign. And one of the things that I think is really good about that is that normally Necromunda campaigns, you're playing 1v1 after game 1, someone's been smashed, and it's no longer worth playing that campaign because they've got a downside in game 2 that one player doesn't have. Then in game 3, it's compounded, and it just goes on to the end of the campaign. Whereas arbitrator versus player allows you to do things that wouldn't necessarily be fair to make the game back into a game. So in some of the games, I found myself using the Gene Stealers as time pressure rather than actually as an active fighter. Do you know, so say in Alien 1, when the aliens just mooching around the ship, adding pressure to certain situations where Ripley's got to complete a task, you can do that as the arbitrator and not be forced to just try and absolutely rail your opponent because you're player versus player. So I find it really good for that. Atmospherically, it's really nice, and I think they've really achieved that. The Blackstone Fortress style gameplay, Hero Quest, Warhammer Quest, all of that they were going for with the Van Saar having different roles. It works really nicely in collecting tech. If you are playing it, and I'll be doing a full sort of hour-long breakdown of the campaign soon, so it's not out of my head. But if you are the arbitrator, I would say don't be scared of playing it more like a GM even than the box sort of alludes to it, and the rulebook alludes to playing it as the arbitrator, but doesn't fully establish what it means by that. definitely recommend going mad with power, but keeping it fair. You want them, yeah, you want basically the player who's playing Van Saar to get to the end of the campaign in game 6. You don't want them like destroyed in game 2. Like, let them get through and sort of limp along to game 6 and have a good allow them to level up, allow them to complete the tasks. Not always make it a game, so that without an element of risk of losing or a significant risk of losing, it's no longer a game. It's just an auto win. I might as well not play. But then in game 6, then you can have a proper game and basically just actually try to win to see who wins the campaign. Is how I think it works the best. And just being a bit of a tyrant in those other games, if they're doing too well, you add more enemies than the scenarios allow, or like say that you should. If they're doing really badly, play like I didn't stamp on one of Phil's fighters because it wouldn't have been good. I allowed him the chance to use some other things within the gang, like his medic. And giving that chance to use the rules because it's player versus arbitrator. So you're telling the story of this campaign. I think it worked really well. It worked really well. Like, as I said, it's good. The Van Saar are a bit limited because you've got basically all las guns. It would have been nice to get some additional weapons. But overall,
isn't there like a mining drill? Isn't there
there's a flamer man catcher that is useless.
Oh, so I hate it when they do that. So it's like the Goliath nail gun they have. It looks so cool, but it's absolutely useless to use in game.
Right. So as the flamer, it's cool because it's like aliens. There's like, we're going into the nuclear power base. Don't use the live ammo. Use the flamers.
Looks awesome.
Yeah. So the problem is that Van Saar hit on 3s anyway. And when you're in close range, which a lot of the time in ZM you're hitting on 2s. So the benefit of a flamer hitting automatically, you don't care about because you're Van Saar. And it's got unstable, which if you roll an ammo dice on a 1 to 3, your guy just, like, you roll a dice and on a 1 to 3, your guy just dies flat. So there's that. And then you'd be like, all right, okay, well, it's at least a close combat weapon as well. But the close combat value of it is really, really bad. It's not a good close combat weapon. So it's a bit of a swing and a miss there, sadly. They could have been braver with, I know it's Van Saar and it could have been a close combat weapon. They could have been braver with it, maybe giving it web. Web is a super powerful rule. Super powerful.
Around.
But it's at least it at least would fit. Make it more expensive, make it better, because sadly it's a bit useless. I will still be taking it whenever I play Van Saar with tech hunters, but I will just know that it's not good.
And how are the How are the Auras?
Auras, insane. Yeah, like so fast, very survivable. Like the weapons are really good. Like the bolt cannons can become mental, absolutely mental. The fists are incredible. Like, it's really powerful, scary threat on the table. Once it started powering up, like the suits like gone like into mega suit, that it's terrifying, which Spyro should be. And I think in a main campaign it will balance out well because a lot of the weapons that you get hold of in main campaigns are more powerful, so it will balance out nicely.
So in terms of equipment, this caught me by surprise, the disintegration matrix. Now, disintegration weapons, aren't they the weapons that the Emperor explicitly forbid? That if one is found on your planet, unless you hand it over, your entire planet gets extinguished.
Yes, but at least the good thing is that based on the rules that they've got, no one will use them.
Oh, no, really?
So you've got a
rule of cool.
You've got like a 10-inch long range and a 3-inch short. At long range, you're going to get -1 to hit. You're already firing 2 weapons, so that's -1 to hit. So then you go to hitting on 5s. Gene Stealers have -1 to hit natural because they've got evade.
Oh,
So
no.
that's 6s. So the entire thing they're good at taking out, like against anything else, you might as well just use bolt guns. But Gene
Yeah.
Stealers, you want a strong weapon. It's
Oh.
so you're hitting them on 6s, it's rubbish. Now, they've also got unstable, which is the same as on the Flamer. So on a 1 to 3, your guy just dies if you roll an ammo check. So that big expensive Horus with a 60-point weapon
awesome
upgrade.
weaponry,
Yeah, dead if you roll a 1 to 3 after an ammo dice. So you just don't want it. The bolt cannons were amazing in the campaign. Like, just absolutely insane. They're just really good. The
bolt cannons, way to go.
The fists, game-wise, found amazing. Because we had, like, Gene Stealers have multiple wounds, so it was just great for just pounding through them. The Talon we didn't find very useful. And I'm not actually that much of a fan of the model of the Talons as well. I'm not. Like, I know it looks like a crab and it fits in with the undersea-ness of the set, but it just didn't strike me as visually attractive.
It's a piece of old John Blanche artwork as well for the original Horus. He looks like he has like 2 crab hands.
I just don't like how that translates into the actual model that they've done. As much as anything. Like, if it was like a big, ridiculous old Commissar Yarrick claw, do you know what I mean? Whereas it looks a bit rounded and not as aggressive as they could have made this crab claw. If it looked like an actual crab claw, where it's like serrated and stuff on the carapace, yes.
Yeah. But looking at the kit, I really wish they made the legs a little bit more dynamic, or you could pose them in a few different ways.
They're not. Because they're not posable, are they? They're just.
Yeah, it looks like they've taken the body and mirrored it to print out.
Potentially, yeah. I didn't think about like kit mirroring as I was going through them, but it wouldn't surprise me. Though, yeah, it's a yeah. Overall, I like the aesthetic of the spires that they've gone for.
Yeah, me too. Me too. I'm just thinking
the Talons.
Like, how do I diversify it? Yeah,
I think replace a leg entirely with something else.
I was thinking even just like replacing like the lower part of the legs, like from the shin downward, maybe, or like replacing the legs entirely.
Yeah, because they were already amputated at the knee, like the actual dude in the rig or dudette.
Yeah,
is amputated at the knee. So having a different leg, like they've just welded it on because they're caught in Secundus, and you're going for this like post-apocalypse theme, it would tie into that a bit more. That it's such a desperate situation that they've been pinned down, that they then, if you're doing the Van Sars, they've allied with the Van Sars because they're already in a bad position, and maybe you can then just like work into that a bit more.
Also, different style of suit, because I'm sure that they're not all the same. That there will be some variation between them.
As in like
I'm going to have a look
and
at
Horus and.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to have a look at some of the AOS Stormcast miniatures, see if anything suits. And I'll cut and match and just go from there.
Yeah. Well, I think that's our coverage of
Secundus.
But Miles, you wanted to show something before that you flashed on screen that was not going to be cut out.
Yes.
The scabbies.
This is the last piece of the puzzle. With this, I now have every single original 1996 Onward gang. And it came new in package. I couldn't help but split it open it up. Had a look inside. He's missing his harpoon, and he has 2 backpacks.
You should write a letter to Games Workshop.
A 30-year-old, over 30-year-old box set. And there's no chance I can get the missing piece for it. I'll have to eBay it.
Write to Games Workshop and just be like, I've just opened this set. Have you got any in the back room?
Okay, yeah, I'll give it a whirl.
The worst that they can say is no way. And they're actually weirdly quite good. Like, if you word it in a funny way, potentially they'll get back to you. You'll at least get a funny response.
Yeah, or maybe like an automated one. Who knows? Who knows? But yes, after 30 years of imprisonment, I opened it up. Goddamn missed package. Oh well.
At least it completes your collection.
It completes the collection. Yeah, and with the Redemption set as well. I feel kind of crummy because I bought it through like a hospice sale on eBay, but they kind of mislisted it a little bit. So I had like a whole redemptionist gang, and there's a whole Cawdor gang in there, and there's an old Wirid, the like techno Wirid in there. So I got a bit of a bargain with that one. I wasn't going to tell them I was getting it on the cheap, but yeah. Okay, that's issue 24. How to rip off hospices.
Yes. Yeah, I've got nothing to add to that. Let's go with Miles' thing.
Perfect way to end.
And let's see everyone later. In a bit.
See you later. Bye bye.